And we are live. Toronto, Stevie live. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late in the week delivering this, but my wife and I were watching movies earlier this weekend. She really wanted to see them, and so I didn't get a chance to get on to do this. But here I am. Just there. I think that's better. I think you can see me now. But let's get into it. We had Monday Night Raw. This week came to you from the Norfolk Scope in Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia. Monday Night Raw begins with the pre-show arrivals and a video of last week on Raw with Roman Reigns being confronted by LA Knight. Again, it really doesn't matter. LA Knight is probably going to have to do the job to Roman Reigns if and when they eventually meet. But Raw, once the video concludes, then the commentators, Michael Cole, basically says Royce Keys, who got beat up by Jacob Fatu last week in a street fight, is out of action indefinitely. This brings out Solo Sikoa, who's in the crowd, and he's sort of making fun of his older brothers, the Usos. And this kind of brings out Jey Uso, comes down to the ring, and he basically is upset at his little brother. And this basically sets up the main event for later on tonight, Jey Uso versus Solo Sikoa. And like I said in my introduction, don't hold this against me, but on Monday Night Raw this week, Solo Sikoa is in the main event. So basically, Jey Uso wants Solo Sikoa to, quote, fall in line because Roman Reigns wants Solo Sikoa to return to the bloodline. But Solo Sikoa is obviously, he doesn't want to, quote, fall in line. So they basically make up this match. They're really trying to get Solo over as a babyface, which I guess would mean the heels would be the Usos. It certainly seems the plan here is once again to reunite the bloodline. Bloodline 2.0, 3.0, 10.0, really doesn't matter. And we've got some folks here. Is that Anthony? Hi, Anthony. How are you doing? I watched and I met a basketball player. So Anthony has already given his 2-word review of Monday Night Raw. Raw sucked. Well, I'll get through it, Anthony, and give you my analysis. And I get a bonus analysis of AEW Dynamite because I just watched that a day late. So if you watched Dynamite, stay for the analysis of Dynamite, Anthony. So the opening match of the night was a number 1 contenders match for the World Heavyweight Championship in this tournament. It was for the tournament, but these are like luchadors. So the idea is for Roman Reigns to take on a luchador, I guess at that 2-night When Worlds Collide show. The participants are Penta and Laredo Kid, Psycho Clown versus La Parka. I'm not sure if it's the original La Parka, but probably a later one. You have Dragon Lee taking on Dr. Wagner Jr. and Ray Phoenix versus El Fiscal. El Fiscal? I think that's how you pronounce it. So we get a video of Penta talking about Laredo Kid coming back from the commercial break. Before the match is a backstage segment with Jay sets up a main event. And finally, we get the opening match of the night. Number 1 contenders tournament match, Penta versus Laredo Kid. Don't know too much about Laredo Kid, but Penta, you kind of thought, since he's on Monday Night Raw every single week, that he wasn't about to lose this match. And sure enough, Penta hit the Mexican Destroyer and pinned Laredo Kid. So Penta advances into this tournament. And Michael Cole announces he'll face either Psycho Clown or La Parca in the semifinals. So we go to a backstage interview. Mr. Entertainment himself, Byron Saxon, interviews the Vision, or what's left of the Vision. And basically Byron is asking about the Alpha Academy. And this is just basically a one-sided feud. As much as I dislike Austin Theory, I hadn't to expect that the Vision is just going to steamroll and destroy the Alpha Academy piece by piece. And so we actually get a singles match coming out of this. It's basically announced that Otis, I believe, was injured, beaten up last week. So they showed the confrontation between Obafemi and Braun Breaker. And then we get the World Tag Team Championship, Austin Theory, taking on Akira Tozawa. Again, kind of a one-sided affair. You never expected Tozawa to win this match. And sure enough, it was Theory hitting his finishing move called the off switch to beat Tozawa. Afterwards, I think you had Braun Breaker. I think was gonna beat up Tozawa. And I think he did set him up for a spear. He was about to hit a spear on Akira Tozawa, and when Obafemi's music hits, Obafemi comes down to the ring, and he basically gets in the ring and is able to ward off Braun Breaker. And Braun Breaker, again, they're avoiding a physical confrontation between these two, holding it off until they have a match, which is probably the right move to go. So we get everyone's favorite backstage interviewer and mine. The very beautiful Kathy Kelly is interviewing AAA General Manager Rey Mysterio about the match between Penta and Laredo Kid. And basically Rey Mysterio says Roman Reigns is going to have his hands full in Mexico City. And this brings in the AAA Mega Champion, Dirty Dominic Mysterio, who is upset with his father for not being included into the tournament. But Dragon Lee basically challenges Dominic to a match. We have Stephanie Vaquer backstage, and after the commercial break, they basically announce Survivor Series will be in Houston, Texas on November the 28th. Get your tickets now. Followed by a video of Stephanie Vaquer when she was attacked by the Judgment Day. And then they have a video of Becky Lynch confronting Liv Morgan. And then back into the ring, Stephanie Vaquer comes down to the ring and she cuts a promo. Her English still isn't very good, but she's basically vowing to defeat the Judgment Day. She said that she has defeated Raquel Rodriguez so many times. She says Roxanne Perez is a dead woman. And as for Liv Morgan, she's scared, and she should be. So this brings out Becky Lynch, who comes down to the ring. And so you have Becky Lynch. It also wants to get in the ring with Liv Morgan. But she has to deal with Stephanie Vaquer. But she says that she realizes that Stephanie Vaquer has a score to settle. And that she said pardon me, a little hot here. And she basically says, Morgan has taken the title back to the mid 2000s, and she basically wants to um, take out Liv Morgan. And this is basically these two don't square off in a fight, but this does brings out Liv Morgan. She tries to attack Becky Lynch from behind, tries to hit her with the Oblivion, but Becky Lynch fights back with a Bexploder. This brings Stephanie Vaquer into the ring to attack Liv Morgan, but Liv Morgan escapes, leaving Becky Lynch and Stephanie Vaquer in the ring by herself. So again, this could either be two one-on-one matches. This could be a three-way match. I certainly hope. I mean, they could prolong this a little bit longer with one-on-one matches, and not just blow this with a single three-way match. I think the best thing to go with this would probably be Stephanie Vaquer and Liv Morgan going at it. Liv Morgan survives and then has to go on to Becky Lynch. So the announcers announce that Montez Ford and Bianca Belair, on the birth of their son, Romeo Crawford. Not too many people are born into this world with the name Romeo, but Montez and Bianca Belair named their kid Romeo Leonardo Allen Crawford. So Kathy Kelly is interviewing LA Knight about last week when he confronted Roman Reigns, and he just basically says Roman Reigns comes out with the same old boring stuff, but he says it's his time and he wants a title shot. So he's confronted by Solo Sikoa, and Solo basically tells him, when you face Roman Reigns, it's going to be you versus the Bloodline, and I wanted to at least warn you. So coming back from the commercial break, they announce, they promote the two-night Triple Mania event. And then there's a non-title match. AAA Mega Champion Dirty Dominic Mysterio taking on Dragon Lee. And this was a pretty good luchador match. I mean, I'll give Dominic his credit. He's coming better as a wrestler. Great heel. I think the longer he stays a heel, the better, because the crowd just is not getting into him like they do other heels, in which they have to turn them baby faces. Dominic is a fantastic heel. The crowd just wants to boo him every single time he comes out. And he has a great match with Dragon Lee. Dragon Lee hits like a snap German suplex, super kicks. Dominic responds with a Michinoku driver for a 2 count. He tries to hit the 619, but Dragon Lee gets out of it. And Dragon actually hits Operation Dragon and pins Dirty Dom. So Dragon Lee picks up the win. But just as soon as he picks up the win, Dirty Dom takes a powder, and Dragon Lee is attacked by Big Cass, who just comes in, big boots Dragon Lee in the face and hits with the East River Crossing move. This brings out Javon Evans, who tries to defend Dragon Lee, but he's hit with the big boot, and Big Cass leaves Javon Evans laying for the second week in a row. So then we get Byron Saxton is interviewing Solo Sikoa. Sol Ruka, I'm sorry, not Solo Sikoa, but Sol Ruka. The names are very similar. So he interviews Sol Ruka, and she cuts a promo on the Judgment Day, and she says she's going to get revenge. She's going to have a tag team partner. Danhausen volunteers, but Sol Ruka doesn't take him up on that offer. Coming back from the commercial break is another backstage segment with LA Knight and Adam Pearce. LA Knight is complaining that he's not in the number one contenders tournament. But he's confronted by Jacob Fatu, and Jacob Fatu basically warns LA Knight to stop running his mouth. But there's no confrontation between these two because Roman Reigns told them no contact with LA Knight. So Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez are getting into the ring. Out comes Sol Ruca, and she basically brings out her tag team partner, which turns out to be Io Sky. So you have Sol Ruca and Io Sky taking on the Judgment Day, Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez. Io Sky hits all of her moves, but I think this one was a showcase for Sol Ruca, because eventually she hits the Soul Snatcher on, I think it was Roxanne Perez, as she pins Roxanne Perez 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring. Winners of the match are Sol Ruca and Io Sky, and they celebrate. We immediately go backstage. Paul Heyman is with Braun Breaker, and Braun Breaker basically asks Paul Heyman if he thinks Obafemi is the future of WWE. Paul Heyman basically says that he has love and respect for Braun Breaker, personally and professionally, but he says he did everything he could do with Brock Lesnar, so he has to respect Obafemi. Breaker basically asks him the question again, and basically Paul Heyman responds by saying, looking at Braun Breaker and saying, well, I think you're starting to think that Obafemi is the future of WWE. So this may be the beginning of a subtle turn for Paul Heyman. I've heard talking online that Paul Heyman might be the new mouthpiece for Obafemi going forward, and that so he would have to do a babyface turn. So they announced that Money in the Bank is coming to New Orleans in October. So we should get some qualifying matches probably in late September. There's a backstage segment with Rey Mysterio and Penta, and it looks like then they do next week on Raw. The number one contenders tournament continues. Ray Phoenix will take on Elvis Skell, and Dragon Lee will take on Dr. Wagner Jr., and Roman Reigns will return to Raw. So we get a backstage segment, lots of backstage segments with Sol Ruca and Io Sky. They're confronted by Lyra Valkyria, and then this leads into the main event of the night. It is Jey Uso versus Solo Sikoa. So basically what the announcers kept saying over and over again was that if Jey Uso wins the match, he will deliver Solo Sikoa to Roman Reigns. But if Solo wins, his family must leave him alone. So these were weird stipulations, and it certainly seemed the crowd is deciding that Solo Sikoa is the babyface in this match, even though Jey Uso still does all the yeeting, all the babyface moves that he does. But he's kind of supposed to be the heel in this set part of the show. In this feud, it is kind of backwards. Jey Uso should be the babyface, Solo should be the heel, but WWE is really trying to reverse the roles here. At one point, Solo didn't, he hits the pop-up Samoan drop, and he does this tribute to Rikishi with with the bit where he slaps his rear end and runs. Does a hip attack into the corner on Jey Uso. At one point, I think he hit a spinning solo, Eventually, Jimmy Uso comes down to the ring, but he gets a Samoan spike for his trouble. But Jey Uso responds with a spear and an Uso splash for the 1-2-3. So the winner of the main event was Jey Uso. So they announced that next week on Raw, Jey Uso will deliver Solo Sikoa to Roman Reigns. Earlier Anthony said that he thought Raw sucked, and I can understand that. This really wasn't a very good Raw. A lot of backstage segments, they were basically forwarding a lot of storylines. But when you consider that the main storyline once again seems to be the bloodline, it's just a retread. It's just the same old, and I'm not really, pumped for that. So we're just gonna have to see, hopefully, where this goes. But pardon me, I did watch AEW Dynamite. I did want to do an AEW Dynamite review as well because actually I thought, I'll tell you right now, I thought AEW Dynamite was the better show. It came from Las Vegas, Nevada, and you actually had the big show. Paul White was on commentary. There was no Taz. Actually, it was an improvement in the commentary table when you had Paul White there. But you have Will Ospreay. Basically, he's out there to cut a promo, and he's talking about Grand Slam Mexico, and he was at Arena Mexico, and he was talking about how he says that he I think he started to talk, and then as soon as he started to talk, this brought out Kenny Omega. He talks about Kenny Omega, and he wants Kenny Omega to come out. But instead of Kenny Omega coming out, Don Callis comes out, and the crowd immediately boos him. And Don Callis remarks that Las Vegas was the birthplace of AEW, but he says, I wasn't at the first show. And then he basically wants to give the crowd a history lesson. And he basically takes credit for making Kenny Omega the AEW World Champion. He also mentions that in Japan, Kenny Omega has defeated Will Ospreay before when he was still in Kenny Omega's corner. And he says the road to All In is paved in gold, but actually it's paved in blood. Will Ospreay's blood, and believe me, folks, before this night ended, somebody was bleeding profusely, but it wasn't Will Ospreay. So, Will Ospreay is distracted. Basically, the Don Callis family, about 4 of them, race into the ring and start beating up on Will Ospreay. This brings out Kenny Omega. I think was it Kenny Omega who came out? He comes out for the save. I think he had a pipe, or he had a weapon with him, and a steel pipe, and he basically cleared the ring. All the heels took a powder, and this kind of ended the segment because Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay didn't actually start fighting again. Again, they're holding off actually competing until All In London. So then afterwards, they basically announced that it was going to be a triple threat match for the number 2 spot in the Casino Gauntlet match. It's going to be Nick Wayne versus Speedball Mike Bailey versus MJF. And MJF, he was the real heel in this. He comes out with his Triple B belt. Obviously, he's not the AEW World Champion, but he's walking around AEW with that belt. And at first, he basically stands by and watches as Nick Wayne and Speedball go at it. And then he starts directing Nick Wayne to do certain things. And Nick Wayne basically does it until MJF's, obviously you're waiting for him to screw Nick Wayne, and he certainly did. But eventually it was Nick Wayne. I think he gets rid of Speedball Mike Bailey. And while his back is turned, MJF comes up behind him. It puts the Salt of the Earth hammerlock move on him, and Nick Wayne has no choice but to tap out. So MJF is the number 2 entrant in the Casino Gauntlet match. Remember that number 1 is Andrade El Idolo. And so, MJF gets on the microphone in the post-match, and he claims that he never lost his title, and he cuts a promo on Andrade, and also mentions Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, saying that he said something like, "God won't be there to save you from him," and he you have a backstage segment with the Brawling Birds and the Divine Dominion, and then you have Mick Foley is there with the Bang Bang Gang. Jay White basically announces that he's going to face David Finlay in the Continental Cup tournament. Coming back from the commercial break is that match. So, the next match is Jay White versus David Finlay. David Finlay, and these are 2 guys about the same size, long hair, beards. Switchblade Jay White, I think he eventually hit his finishing move, the Blade Runner, on David Finlay, and pinned him 1, 2, 3. So advancing in the Continental Tournament is Jay White. Coming back from the commercial break, Tony Schiavone is in the ring. He brings out the new Trios champions, the team of Hangman Adam Page and Brody King and Bandito. And they're in there for a quick interview, but before Hangman can hardly say anything, out comes Swerve Strickland and Prince Nana, and they come down the ring, get in the ring, and basically Swerve cuts a promo on all 3 of these guys, saying that he has history with all of them. And he basically says, to Brody King, "The last time I saw you, you were laying in a pool of your own blood." And then he addresses Hangman Adam Page. He says, "At one point, we were on the same page." No pun intended. And while he's gone, you went after the world championship and lost. What's your legacy going to be now? Are you going to just ride off into the sunset? And so, again, this was just one long segment of them talking to each other. And the next match, so I think there was I'm not sure if it was a video segment or something. They were talking about Mercedes Moné's attack on Willow Nightingale. But this leads into the next match. It is for the TNT Championship. The champion, the Jet Kevin Knight, defends against Chris Jericho. And Chris Jericho, I guess now he's kind of reverting back to his Lionheart Chris Jericho look. So he went. He was using all of his old moves. His big move was trying to hit the walls of Jericho. At one point, he did get to it, but Kevin Knight did get out of it. And at one point, you had Big Show, Paul White on commentary, actually bringing up the fact that he and Chris Jericho used to be a tag team. And but this match ended when Jericho, I think he had Kevin Knight in the walls of Jericho, and he was near the ring ropes, and behind the referee's back, Don Callis came up and hit Chris Jericho in the face with a screwdriver. This allowed Kevin Knight to hit a low blow on Chris Jericho behind the referee's back, hit the crash landing, and actually pin Chris Jericho and retain the TNT Championship. So the reign of Kevin Knight as the TNT Championship continues. There's a backstage segment with the Death Riders. Claudio Castagnoli doesn't know who he's going to face in the next round, but I have a feeling I know where this is going, considering what happens later on in the show. Coming back from the commercial break, there's a women's match, Chris Statlander versus a woman named Viva Vaughn, which I've never heard of before, but nonetheless, Chris Statlander defeats her in a few minutes with the Wednesday Night Fever. And Mick Foley comes into the ring so that he cuts a promo on Chris Statler actually cuts a promo on Hikaru Shida and Persephone, and this was leads into the return of Thunder Rosa. So I actually enjoyed this tag team match better than the first women's match. It was Persephone and Hikaru Shida taking on Maya World, the TBS champion, and the CMLL women's champion, Thunder Rosa. It was great seeing Thunder Rosa back in AEW. I kind of miss her. I mean, I wish that AEW would do more with Thunder Rosa, but I guess because she's committed to CMLL, that she's now in Mexico. Great appearance and great return by Thunder Rosa, but it was Maya World who got the win in this one. A bridging fall away slam, and the baby faces win the match. So then coming back from the commercial break, Kyle Fletcher is there, and he cuts a promo. Don Callis is with him. He says he's had a chat with Tony Khan, and there's someone here who hasn't had a rematch. So basically, it's announced that at AEW All In, that Kyle Fletcher is going to defend his title in a triple threat match. He's taking on Takeshita, and I think Okada. This is a tongue twister. Takeshita and Okada will challenge Kyle Fletcher for the international, there's so many titles, the international championship. It's going to be a Don Callis family triple threat match. So coming back from the commercial break is the main event of the night. This was one hell of a match. It was the first round for the AEW Continental Challenge Cup. The current Continental Champion, John Moxley, taking on Jack Perry. And as I said earlier, Before the night was finished, someone was going to bleed, and sure enough, it was Jack Perry. At one point, John Moxley grabs Jack Perry and just slammed him headfirst into the ring post. And when Jack Perry got up, he was bleeding at the top of his head. And when John Moxley just started throwing Jack Perry all over the place, and the blood just continued to flow throughout the remainder of this match. And Jack Perry would play the heroic babyface who, even though John Moxley was just beating him up pillar to post and knocking him down, Jack Perry would get up again and again, fight back. And at one point, the ending segment came when Jack Perry was able to get his snare trap move on John Moxley. And John Moxley, he was fighting back. He didn't tap out. He was able to reverse it into the bulldog choke, and it was Jack Perry who had to fight back. He had to really struggle, but eventually John Moxley repositioned himself, reapplied the bulldog choke, and it was the referee who eventually noticed that Jack Perry stopped moving, and the referee had to call the match off and award the victory to John Moxley. But that's why I gotta say, on the whole, AEW Dynamite was definitely the better show. The main event was definitely better. I would highly recommend if you seek out this match, John Moxley versus Jack Perry. The announcers said that this was the first time in their careers, in AEW at least, that John Moxley and Jack Perry had wrestled, and it was worthwhile. It certainly is worthwhile to take a look. So my final review of Monday Night Raw is kind of a thumbs down, but AEW Dynamite is a thumbs up. So if you're going to watch a show this week, the show to watch is definitely AEW Dynamite. I don't know if Nasty Neil is going to have a show on Friday. Hopefully I can get on there, but I'm sure he's going to have his own opinions of the main event of AEW Dynamite if you watch the show. So I'm kind of interested to see what he has to say about it, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a worthwhile main event. And that's my review. I will get this show up as quickly as I can and edit out edit this out and get it on. So thank you very much for watching. And we had Jonathan Jackson. Jonathan Jackson. Hey, Jonathan. I guess you must have watched AEW Dynamite. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of it, and whether or not you thought it was a worthwhile show. I thought it did. But this is Toronto Stevie Live. Thank you very much for watching, and I am out of here. Bye-bye, everybody.